Assalamualaikum. I am Nurjana binti Abdullah. My metric number is 266279. So today, I would like to present about the Istina contract for the current issue. So the first one is, I would like to introduce about what's the meaning of Istina contract actually. Okay, so basically, Istina contract refers to a contract which a seller sells to a purchaser an asset which is yet to be constructed, built or manufactured according to agreed specification and delivered of an agreed specified future date at an agreed predetermined price. So, once the Istina asset is duly constructed, built or manufactured in accordance with the agreed specification and condition and is duly accepted by the purchaser, the seller must be entitled to full payment of the agreed price for the Istina asset. Okay, so Istina contract ni must consist of the component. Okay, so the first one component is contracting party, which is comprising seller and purchaser. The second one is offer, which is called as ijab, and also acceptance, which is called as the kabul, ijab and kabul. So the third one is Istina asset, must have an asset. The fourth one is price and payment mode. And the last one is Istina project and delivery of Istina asset. Okay, so the next one is I would like to discuss about the background of Istina. Okay, so despite the great importance of the Istina contract in the various areas of economic and social life, it involves a range of risks faced by the bank when it is activated. So, the risks facing Islamic banks vary when applying Istina. The most important of these risks are those related to Istina itself, like credit risk, market risk, operational risk, and liquidity risk. Okay, so the first one, I would like to tell you all about the manufacturer-related risk. These are the group of risks relating to the manufacturer because of the lack of sufficient experience of the manufacturer, which affect the quality of the product and the length of delivery time, or because of lack of technical or financial capabilities. The second one is client-related risks. These risks are due to lack of sufficient experience in determining the specification of the product, which allow the manufacturer to act and deliver goods contract to what the client expect. And next one is product-related risk. Okay, this risk relies when the product needs special condition during manufacturing, transport, and storage, such as the pharmaceutical industry, regardless of which party assume responsibility in the event of damage to the goods. Additional risk will arise from the nature of the good. Next one is duration of the contract-related risk. The longer the duration of the contract is, whether the manufacturing period or the repayment period, additional risks will arise, which are the risks related to the change in economic condition which occur after the conclusion of the contract. Next is credit risk. This risk relate to the risk of settlement or inability to deliver by the manufacturer in the parallel Istina contract or the risk of non-payment by the client in the initial Istina contract. In order to avoid this risk, they must be covered by an appropriate choice by the manufacturer and with sufficient guarantees against Istina debt. Okay, the next one is the market risk. Market risk ni, profit margin risk or so-called reference price, which is Islamic bank may not appear to be exposed to the market risk arising from changes in interest rate as long as they do not deal with interest rate. But changes in interest rate pose some risk in the income of Islamic financial institution because they use different price to determine the price of their various financial instruments. Product price risk, and then exchange rate risk in the case of the first purchase in a particular currency and then when selling in another currency in parallel Istina. Okay, so the next one is operational risk. The risk of operations such as inaccuracy in the execution of operations or record keeping, the risk of documenting istina contracts, the risk of internal fraud and external fraud, as well as the indulgence of Islamic banks to adequately inquire about the manufacturer in the client, in parallel istina, or the risk of big fake. Okay, the last one is liquidity risk. The risk arises from the bank inability to meet its obligations when they are due by providing the necessary funds without incurring acceptable losses. In istina, these risks occur when the bank is unable to finance istina contracts that meet the bank's liquidity requirements. Okay, further suggestion of the issue for istina contract, this one. And the first consideration is the istina contract include a precautionary margin in favor of the client in order to ensure the quality of the product according to the required specifications. In other words, the customer hedges against the risk of quality when he pays part of the price to the manufacturer at the place of the conclusion of the contract and postpone the remaining amount to delivery date. For the second consideration, the istina contract include the protection of the client against the inability of the manufacturer to meet the production of the required quantity of the manufactured product. When the client pays part of the price and the rest is delayed to the date of delivery, it hedges against the risk of the manufacturer failing to produce the required amount of the commodity, which are reasonable reason for istina jurisprudence away from the requirement of prepayment of the price in solemn contract. Okay, in the other hand, if we subject istina to the condition of solemn and deprive Muslim of the advantage of hedging against the risk of quality in industrial product and the risk of meeting the required amount of product, it is natural that people avoid entering high-risk manufacturing contract. Instead, they work hard to buy ready-made product from countries that do not comply with the condition of solemn contract in the industry. So, this restriction will lead to Muslim society being backward and industrially consuming to produce others. Thus, the possibility of the istina contract implies an interest in urging Muslims to proceed with financing their industrial activities with a contract that provide them with the possibility of hedging against economically significant risks rather than having to import industrial product from countries that do not apply Islamic law. So one of the most important amendments and addition to the draft of this standard is the confirmation of the reversibility of the penalty clause in the istina contract, the supply and the leasing of the business only, without the contract resulting in debt owed by the debtor. So the penal condition may be required in all financial contract except for contract where the original obligation is debt because it would be usury. This contract is permissible for the contractor. So the contract of supply for the supplier and the istina contract for the manufacturer if he does not implement what he has committed or is late in executing it. It is not permissible in istina contract for the client if he is late in paying his obligation. So the whole conclusion for this issue, an istina contract can be concluded by offer and acceptance between the seller and the purchaser even before the seller assumes the title to the istina goods to be sold to the purchaser. Since a contract of istina is binding, the party to the contract are inevitably bound by all obligation and consequences flowing from their agreement, and the contract can only be terminated by mutual agreement of the party. If the istina work, however, has not commenced, either party may terminate the istina contract unilaterally. So, a technically appraisal consulting firm can be appointed by the purchaser for ensuring whether the istina good conform to the contractual specification. The additional cost of supervision can be borne by either party as mutually agreed. So, itu saja. That's all from my side. Thank you.